All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Billy Carlson. I'm here from Balsamiq talking with Shay Howe. Shay, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Shay, designer, engineer, product marketer here in Chicago.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. So, as you know, this series is about talking to designers about what they do and how they do it. And it's intended for non-designers to sort of learn different processes of how to do things. So, welcome. I think we can just kick it off by maybe a little bit of your background. Like, what have you done?
Yeah, I'm a mutt, Billy. I'm a complete mutt. I went to school for design. That's kind of like where I traditionally started. And even then, I focused more on like web design than it would be more traditional design, if you will. And going through that, I learned to become a great web designer. But I never really knew like if what I was designing was what people wanted, frankly. Like I could ask them, but what people say and what they do is often inherently different.
Yeah.
So I became an engineer. Like I just like more self-taught myself engineering. And that led me to basically being able to build what I was designing. And then I figured out I'm oftentimes designing and building and putting time and investment into things that people don't actually want. So then I went more into product management, to understand like at the heart of this, like why does this stuff matter? What do people really want? And how can we take technology to solve an existing problem and create a better user experience with it? So,
That is
yeah, so I've been a designer, an engineer, a product manager. I've led teams doing all of the above, also looping in different operations, strategy, marketing in there. Just like it's I'm just a mutt at the end of the day.
Great. All the experience.
Yeah. And I'd say most of my experience comes from high growth subscription as a service or software as a service like based businesses, to give that some context.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I know you've worked on lots of stuff. You've even written a book, and you didn't even mention that, which is a very popular learn how to learn HTML, CSS book.
Yeah.
I don't know the title, sorry, Shay, but
learn to code HTML and CSS. I had to think about it for a minute, so I don't even know.
So I want to talk about, maybe we can focus on one project that sort of we can dig into about the process of how you created it.
Yeah. Okay.
You want to talk about Lead Honestly? I think that's a great.
Yeah.
There.
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah. I can speak to this. I think there's like two things that'd be really interesting and applicable. I could like go through in like two different kind of stories.
Awesome.
One is the entire idea behind Lead Honestly is allowing managers to establish and create more meaningful relationships with their team members. And the way it works is founded off of how I was leading teams with a friend of mine at a company called Belly. So essentially we were using Google Docs to put questions in to send to each individual employee before a one-on-one meeting, just to kind of spark the conversation, to ensure that we were always talking about something slightly different in our conversations, learning new things about each other, and basically further deepening the trust we had. And coming out of it, out of the organization, it's like that was one of the best parts of it. Like that was something I really enjoyed was talking to those individuals and like those meetings. But boy, was it a lot of work, right? Like to actually write the questions, put them in a doc each week, send them to the team members, like get it all queued up. And I was like, I really think like if we build a product to automate that and like helped you naturally lead the team, it'd be fantastic. But like, will people pay for that? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So what we did was essentially we just built a landing page. And literally like stood up a landing page in a day. It was just, let's find a quick domain, let's write some copy, like let's actually like get the words out to like what this is. But the product on day one was simply, will you pay $9 a month to have 5 questions emailed to you each week? And like as a manager, like we'll just email you 5 questions to ask your team each week. And like it, the landing page is like connected to Stripe, and that was it. So like day one, I remember like launching it, posting it to Product Hut, and going to lunch, and coming back and be like, all right, 10 people signed up and are now paying. Like this is now a business. But even then, it was like, all right, so I guess like we should create a mailing list and start like organizing these questions to send out. In the last 2 years, like it's blossomed. It's now has all the automation. You can customize the questions yourself. You can use different playbooks. You can put surveys in there. There's an entire team and organization capabilities. There's analytics behind it. Like, it's got some superpowers in it now that like we're far off from those days ago. But really interesting, just like the evolution was one of what is that smallest like nugget of a product we could build and like iterate our way through it.
That's really great. So yeah, you started literally with like manually having to do this based off of just an email list, and now it's a fully.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, honestly, for the first year, like, I would go send an email once a week. And it was like, this is so painful. It's so like, it was so time consuming, but like, it also opened up interactions to our customers, right? Like, the email was sent from Shay, like, just reply and we can talk.
Yeah.
So a lot of like customer feedback. Yeah.
So in building the more robust features, how did you go about doing that? Did you have a process behind it, like starting from sketches and wireframes, or how did you go about creating and adding these new features?
Yeah. I mean, so like my background in design and product, like, I always try and stay incredibly close to the customer as I can. So even just started to automate ways that would work, right? So the day after you sign up for Lead Honestly, you're going to get an email from me that asks like, how's it going, right? After your first meeting, you're going to get an email from me that asks, how's it going, right? Like, there's different like triggers that like I'm going to email you on. And even if you create an account, but actually like your trial expires and you never sign up, right? Like, I'm going to email you and ask you, how's it going? Yeah. So we find a lot of ways to get that feedback, and that kind of drives what we build and how we kind of change the product. One of which, like, there's been there's a process of adding an employee to the product. And we've gotten a lot of questions and feedback just of, why is certain information asked? Why is this information not asked? What's the experience for an employee? I can't see that. How do I know what that means? And kind of just like getting an understanding of like what all that is. And so for a while, I just started engaging people and asking them, well, what would you expect? What would you like? What's the optionality you'd be interested in? Trying to get a sense of like what that is. And have since started just redesigning that process of how to add an employee. It honestly, like, it started in the simplest, like I always try and like go like low fidelity to high fidelity in this process. And I'd say in this scenario, I started at like no fidelity. Like, honestly,
what do you mean? I love that.
I just like, it was literally all copy. Like, I just created a Google Doc and was like, let me write the copy for the interface. Let me stage it out. Like, cause there's 3 steps in a completion state, right? So it's like step 1, like, we need to know the employee's name and email address. Great. We got that. Cool. And like in that, there's also the option, like, do you want to send them a welcome email to Lead Honestly or not? Right. Cause some people don't want to, and they want to be able to invite their team members themselves and kind of engage a different way. So I just like wrote out what that would look like. Step 2 is a little more comprehensive, because it starts to say like, all right, when do you want to meet? How often do you want to meet? Do you want to install like a Google Calendar integration to put this on your calendar? And if so, what time do you want to meet? What's the duration of the meeting, right? Things like that. And then the last part is, what playbook do you want? What type of questions do you want to ask this team member? There's a lot, because then it's like, well, what's a playbook, and what are the types of playbooks, and what are sample questions from them? Things like that. And I literally just put it all in a Google Doc and went to those customers who had like questions and said like, give me feedback. Like, what do you think? And like literally hadn't even put like pencil to paper on any of it, and just iterated on the copy to try and make it make more sense.
I love the concept no fidelity. That's great.
Yeah, it's just like, well, there's low fidelity, there's no fidelity. There's no design to this.
Yeah.
The most like design there was like bold words.
That's awesome. Hierarchy of the content. Cool.
Yeah. And then once I had that in place, I know I knew enough of like, all right, where do I want to get started? So I just like started building a loose prototype, like not wired up to our database, but having that engineering background, like I just jumped straight into that, right? Like taking what that copy was and using our existing elements on the page of form fields and things like that to just build out like a clickable prototype through it. Went back to the same customers and said, great, here's the copy in an interface. Does it still work, right? Like, is this still making more sense? And even then it was like, oh, now that I see it on the page, like, yeah, like what if this was actually conditional, right? Like what if in step 1 you noticed if I took this action or not, and then you changed it in step 3 based off that. I was like, yeah, no, that makes sense, right? So like an example of that in step 1, like if you send, or if you do not send a team member like a welcome, on the last step, we remind them, hey, don't forget to remind your team members that you signed them up for Lead Honestly, right?
Yeah.
And in the Google Doc, like I had the copy written for that. There's just like, oh, hey, like heads up, if you didn't do this, make sure you do this. And people are like, just get it out of the interface. Like it actually not adding value because I already did it.
Yeah.
Show it to me if I didn't. And I was like, perfect.
That's
so
awesome.
like, yeah. And now it's one of like, it's actually done, it's built, and now let's wire it up to the back end. Like let's actually launch this and roll it out.
If you have the ability to do that at your product at your business, it's great.
Yeah. And like, honestly, I'll be honest too, Billy, like that's not the process for everything I do. Right.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
It's totally going to vary based off the problem I'm solving, how close I am to it, like what it actually is.
Yeah.
When we built out some of the playbook features and functionality for Lead Honestly, like it was an entirely new concept, like pretty foreign to us of what it was. And that was a far more sketching, like that was like, all right, let's like put some pen to paper. Like, let's actually go through like what this is, share it with folks. Cause like it's confusing.
Yeah.
Cause you can have different employees and different playbooks. Different employees can be in the same playbook, but on different sets of meetings and questions.
Yeah.
It like far more complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. I think it's interesting because one of the things that I try to explain to product owners or project managers is, just like you said, different problems need different, ways to solve them. So you might be able to do a no fidelity to coding, or you might have to go through like, if it's very complex, you should, sketch it out, write it out, plan it out, map it out so that everyone is on the same page of how to go through that experience.
Yeah. I'd say like the one thing that's like core and like really doesn't change for me is like, I always start with the words, as weird as that sounds. Is just like, even if it's like the sketch on the page, like, I'm usually not doing like scribbles to say like, all right, this is the heading and this is the subheading. I'm usually like, no, like what's it actually say?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's going to actually really start to influence the design of this. So I'll put more effort there than I will, honestly, like in how something looks. I'm not a great visual designer. Like it's just not like me. And I don't think that that's inherently bad, because I think like, even if it looks great, if it doesn't work, if it doesn't solve the right problem, it really doesn't matter how great it looks. Yeah. Like once you get into like moving elements of a page around or starting to structure and think about it, your mind can be pulled off of like the actual end user a little bit to say like, I'm trying to make what's on the page easier, but do I even have the right things on the page to begin with?
Yeah.
Right. Like, is this what's helpful? And I know that if I didn't start with the words or in that, prior example, like the Google Doc, like there's so much I would have missed. Even here at like Active Campaign, we think about design. So we have a fairly large design team, and we have a product design group, and that group thinks about 3 core things, right? Like why are we doing this? Like, what is the problem? Who has the problem? When do they have it? How are they solving it today? Like, what does that even exist? And that's just product strategy thinking and understanding, if you will, really.
Yeah.
Then there is like, okay, understanding the problem, like how could we solve it, right? And that becomes the interaction design, if you will, right? So how do we create an experience that is intuitive? How do we reduce friction inside of any of the flow of this information? What words are necessary on that page? Like how do we actually bring coherency to that problem? Right. So it's like thinking about like how it comes together. And then lastly is like what does it actually look like? That becomes the visual design side. That's your aesthetic, the personality behind it. That's layering in the style guide, things like that. And we work loosely in that fidelity, right? So a lot of our design critiques, when someone brings something in, it's always going through that phase of, all right, like why is this a problem? How might we solve it? What could it look like? And that's generally where we focus. And then everyone on the team also discusses, like they'll begin showing something, and almost always my first question is like, where would you like feedback? Because it's easy to gravitate towards like what that visual side is and where we might be able to dig in. But again, not the most impactful, right? Like we should go back to why.
Yeah, I think it's important for people new to design and non-designers who are interested in learning is that a lot of designers don't or shouldn't just focus on the aesthetics, and it's about like everything behind the experience, and the aesthetics is there to enhance it and not get in the way of it, I guess.
Yeah. Such a like hard thing to learn. Like I know like when I was getting started in design, like if I go look at some of those like first few projects, I got like drop shadows all over the place. I got like you could tell it's just like, oh, Shay learned something new in Photoshop, like, and then he applied it to this design, but it had no actual like real value or someone's tune making the design help. And I think as I've gotten like further along in my career, the less I actually design, right? Like as weird as that sounds. And I think about like some of the best websites I use or like where I have a really good experience, like I don't feel, see, or even understand the design because it's omnipresent, right? Like it helped me get the job done. It didn't get in the way. It didn't like completely stand out. Like it supported everything I wanted to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Let's see. I'm curious of what are some other tips? Like let's talk about people, like how we can support people new to design. There's a lot of people that I think are coming in either as a second career or they're new, but there's not a good place to sort of learn product design. There's no school for product design, really. There's boot camps, but I think the best way is talking with designers and learning about their process and sort of just diving in and doing it. So I'm curious if you have any tips for new designers.
Yeah. Great question. I think a lot of it depends on like what type of learner you are, right? I'm very kinesthetic. Like I learn by like getting my hands on it. So for myself, it was always of how do I actually like build things? Like how do I get that real experience? And like I used to just like grab a website and redesign it. But even then, like I'm missing so much context. Again, going back to like why, like I don't understand like why they made certain decisions. Like I just have a hypothesis of like why it would be better. So one of the things I started doing in the first year or two, even in college and high school, was just like, let me start to find like organizations that need help but can't really afford help. Because I'm not really worth paying much. Honestly, like
that's great. Yeah.
And I remember like the first website I ever got paid to build was for the ARC, and it's the Association of Retarded Citizens in my hometown, and amazing nonprofit. And I built them a website entirely based in tables. It took me forever to do. It's probably like impossible to maintain. But I spent time with their director, right? The director of this nonprofit, understanding who are their customers, right? How are they trying to drive donations? How do they organize events? Like, how do they like to operate as a business? And how can we start to like bring that into their website? It was incredible because it took me a while to do, but I learned a lot. And that individual immediately turned me around and referred me to a food bank in the same town.
Oh, nice.
And they're like, same story. Like, we can give you like $200. Great. Like, let's do it.
Yeah.
I started doing that, honestly, for different nonprofits and like learning a ton through it. And then in college, I moved across the country, started going to school where I had no friends. So I started building websites for sororities and fraternities. Honestly, it was just like, I need friends. You all need websites. Like, let's figure this out. So it was like finding like the win-wins in the scenarios, if you will. And then again, like for me, learning was getting that real experience and like being able to stretch myself through it, honestly.
That's great. A lot of what I run into is, or what I would love to have better answers for when someone new to design asks is, how do you start getting feedback from professionals? Because if you're doing a website for a nonprofit, most of the time they're going to love you for it because they need help. I think that was my biggest challenge too, is I sort of didn't go to school for design at first, and I was teaching myself, and I didn't know what I didn't know until I met like a really good designer. And I was like, oh, okay, this is a whole nother level that I don't even know about.
Yeah. One of the ones for me was Twitter, honestly enough. Just like posting things on Twitter, I found like a few key people via Twitter that like we eventually took our conversations over to AIM, because AIM was a thing back in those days. This is like right when Twitter started. And we would just share each other's work. Like we were all in different parts of the world. Luke Beard's one of those individuals that was like out in the UK, and like we would share screenshots of our work, be it every week, every month or something like that, and just like critique one another's like work and help each other out. I did that with a few individuals, which was really helpful. I think that still exists, right? Like that community is still out there. I think now it's more Slack communities and things like that. I went to a lot of meetups too. Like,
good idea.
Yeah. In college, there was a meetup that was literally every Wednesday night. It was just like an open forum for people to come work. So like, it was like working professionals. Like it had nothing to do with like the university or anything. And I would just like, it was at an agency's office. I just started showing up while in college, getting feedback. When I moved to Chicago, like there really wasn't like that type of forum here. There was in different areas. So 4 of us started it, right? We started Refresh Chicago for that sole purpose of like, how do we like go out and meet people in the community and like get feedback and work together?
That's awesome. Yeah. If you can't find one, start one, because there's probably other people looking.
Yeah. And like, what's so funny about that is like, I had moved here, and having had that experience where I came from in college, I was like, hey, I want that here. And it didn't exist. And I just found a few individuals online talking about it, like in a forum. And I was like, look, I don't know anyone. I'm not going to be able to get speakers. Don't count on me really for anything other than like ordering food and cleaning up.
Enthusiasm. Yeah.
But I'll do it. Like I'll be there every month to do this. And that's what we did. Yeah. We did it for like 5 years, which is wild.
Yeah. I remember going to those. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think they may have met you there. I just kind of.
Quite possible.
Yeah. Obviously.
Yeah. Honestly, like that, it's wild, but like that I think has been like pivotal in my entire career, right? Like I met someone at Refresh who eventually ended up working for a portfolio company of a venture capital firm here in Chicago. And I started freelancing for that portfolio company. They referred me to another portfolio company, right? They referred me to another portfolio company. And it got to the point where the venture capital firm was like, can you just come work here? Like it'd honestly be cheaper for us to employ you than have our portfolio companies continue to pay you. That's what I did. And I joined them. And then one of those portfolio companies ended up being Groupon, which was a massive rocket ship. And one of the entrepreneurs in residence at that venture capital firm started their own company thereafter that I joined and was there for 4 years. It's like literally like that meetup set like a seed in place that was everything else.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Meetups, everyone. That's great. Yeah. So that was great. I think that's a lot of interesting and quality information for people. So I think I'm going to pause here and maybe go back and talk about some other questions that are a little more process oriented about, because Balsamiq is a wireframing company. I love to learn about maybe even how you learned, like how you learned to wireframe. Like I distinctly remember hearing about them, like working at an agency as a designer and just getting wireframes for the first time and being like, this is new. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm curious of what maybe talk about wireframing, talk about, if you don't mind, what your wireframing process is. Like, why do you find it valuable?
Yeah.
Like that.
Totally. Wireframing it's something I had to learn, oddly enough. And I think a lot of people just feel like sketching, wireframing is like, it should be an innate ability of ours. And I just wasn't wired that way. So it really took me some time to like retrain myself to be like, no, like I should go lower fidelity. Like I should work on more of the aspect of why this stuff matters. And today, like the purpose, the goal of wireframes and a lot of what I do, and be it like prototyping as well, is when I'm working with engineers or like digging into a product with different stakeholders, I can write up a brief, right? Like I could put up a 10-page document as to why we're doing this, who the audience is, why all this matters. And people probably wouldn't read it. Like wait, like another thing to read, another 10-page doc. Thanks, Shay. And what I started to learn was like, I don't want to invest in the high fidelity because we don't know all the answers yet. But if I can show them something, right, like a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
So I really use sketching, that wireframes, like those prototypes, to really build like an understanding of why we're solving this problem, even internally and externally. So in-house, like with the engineers and the product managers, like, hey, here's the direction we're going, and they can start to see it, right? And in those scenarios too, when you have that wireframe, like you start to ask real questions, I think, of what are the words on the page, right? Like, ooh, this looks like it's missing, or have we thought about adding this? Or now that we see this, maybe we want to change it, maybe we want to add this, right? I think like the conversation gets to a far more contextual place faster in that process. And then it's also like, it's tangible. You can take that to a customer and be like, what do you think of this? Like, right or wrong, where are we at? And that's like when I think of like the wireframe side, like for me, it's essentially like, how do we begin to tell the story around what this is? Rather than trying to get someone to read the story, if that makes sense.
That's awesome. No, that's great. I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I don't want to keep you too much longer.
You're good. Yeah.
So thank you, Shay, very much for joining us. I think that was some awesome information, and I really appreciate it. So thank you from Balsamiq, and happy Friday. It's Friday, everyone. And I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Okay. That's done. But for real